What is the unfolding? It's our time, our apocalypse. Did you know the word apocalypse means an unveiling or unfolding of things not previously known? That's the exciting part of midlife, discovering all the mystery and marvel that we didn't even know about ourselves. This is our revelation, and this is the unfolding. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the new season of The Unfolding. Yes, I know, I've been doing this podcast for almost 4 years now, but like I said, we're kind of taking a new direction where we are focusing on women in midlife and how the Enneagram fits into that and how midlife women fit into the process that I see is the unfolding. And that is that we are discovering more and more about who we are beneath the layers that we've built up in our life over these years. So before I get to going too much with Sara, I want to say she is giving you a beautiful gift, and we're going to talk about that at the end. I am so grateful for her insight. But y'all, this little thing, it's a downloadable PDF that is called the Power Years Playbook Passport.
Passport Playbook. Yeah.
Passport Playbook. It's like all those P's. I'm sorry.
All the P's.
Because I promise you, I have it all printed out. It's
Look
just
at that.
but it's fun. It's just such a fun thing. And we're going to talk about that more later. But when I began searching through my social media for midlife Enneagram, I found nothing. I couldn't find anyone that was focusing on how the Enneagram looks different for us in midlife. And that is not to say, let me make this big disclaimer. There are many wonderful, powerful, beautiful women who are midlife and beyond who have paved the way with the Enneagram for us, and they are doing beautiful work. But I just thought, well, why do the memes not mean what they used to mean to me, especially where the Enneagram world is concerned? And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to start connecting with women who their focus is midlife and how their passions come together with the many different areas that they're putting out into the world, some beautiful work. And so I started doing some search for midlife women. And y'all, I just hit the jackpot. I have to say that because I met Sara. And when I say met Sara, hello, it was through Instagram. But I know many of you have to relate to this, that you follow someone or you start looking at their, post online, Facebook, whatever it is, reading some of their information, and you go, I vibe with her. And wouldn't you know it, Sara is an Enneagram type 9. And so that peaceful presence just drew me right in. Sara Smeaton, welcome to the podcast.
Today. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited and really excited to talk to you about the Enneagram. I know we're not going to talk tons about it, but I'm just so excited about it. You've inspired me so much, and I've been doing quite the sort of deep dive since we met. So really, I'm so happy to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And when you and I first started chatting about the whole midlife women and the paths that we go down and the paths that we stop going down, the layers that we remove, I asked you, had you ever heard of the Enneagram? And you at the time, and this has been about a little bit ago, you were kind of fluctuating between a couple of Enneagram types, but you said you had a client.
Well, yeah. So I have a client who at least knew her number. And, it didn't mean that much to me when she told me the number. But now that I've been looking into it, it's like reading her resume, actually, like the gifts. I was like stunned. And I have, listened to podcasts where they're talking about Enneagrams, and I've heard people talking about it. And when we spoke, I think I said to you, is there a type that doesn't see themselves in it. You're like, yes, there is. And that's really been my struggle in life, is not really being able to place myself. Remember when everybody was saying what Sex and the City character they were? I was like, I am not any of those. Like, I don't know. Right? So it's been my struggle to see myself as clearly as I see others, which now I understand to be quite a 9 characteristic.
Yes, it is. Yeah. But again, when I say I just caught your vibe, there's this, it emanates. And I'm not saying, oh, I can go around and, pick up on everybody's vibe and tell them exactly what it is. But the more we talked about the work you do and the way you approach it, I was like, wow, I feel that. And so I know I did suggest.
You did.
Why don't you?
But then I took the test.
Yes.
And it confirmed. And then I read the description and I was like, okay.
Yeah. That's really what made you settle in, because the test, right, can just lead you. So.
Yes, absolutely. Because I did the test on my husband last night and we're still not sure. It may have been a little off. So.
Oh, that's where the fun begins.
All right. Well,
I could do a whole thing on that, but when my husband finally, I'd been doing this like 14, or I don't know, at the time, probably 8. And I was like, this really has a lot to do with your work. You really ought to look. And it just opened up a whole world of conversations every day.
Yeah. It's very empathy building, right? It's really beautiful.
Being the end, you described exactly what the Enneagram is about. It is not becoming more of who I am. It's finding empathy. That I am so happy you said that.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
I really felt it for myself. I was like, oh, that's why. Like, it's like, there's not something wrong with you. It's just, that's the tendency. And also for other people, I'm really, really thrilled to have met you and to have, because even though this has crossed my path now many times in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, this is the first time that it's clicked. So
given the work that you do, it's only going to, empathy with your clients. So I want to get to the good stuff. I want to get to you. Okay. So I remember reading on one of your posts, and I'm going to read this exactly like it was, because I was like, hello, this is who I want to connect with. So it said, the term midlife reinvention isn't accurate. And you went on to say, just because the world isn't aware of everything that's alive in you doesn't mean you're becoming someone or something brand new. You get to be an ongoing revelation. Can you just share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes the more we start hearing a term, we become sort of numb to it and we stop questioning, what does that really mean? And I think that had happened to me, because you really can't go on Instagram or anywhere else without seeing that term.
Right.
And something about it always has bristled in me a bit. And I was thinking about, why does this bother me? And what I've realized is that in order to reinvent something, it first has to be done, like presented to the world, patented, complete. And then an object might get reinvented. But humans are never done, is my belief. We're always evolving, always learning, always growing. And so the idea that we have to reinvent ourselves, to me, feels very connected to the notion that you have to be this, complete person by 40 or 30 or whatever the number is, right? That there's an expiry date, that there's a finish line. And that really bothers me on so many levels. And, even as a parent, when you have babies, is your baby crawling yet? Is your baby eating solids? It's like starts right away. How fast can this person develop and do and accomplish and achieve and all those things? So I feel that midlife reinvention is actually a product of ageism.
Oh boy, I read a lot about some of your articles that you talked about ageism.
Oh yes, okay.
Talk about that, yes.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, I'm not an academic, but I feel on an emotional level that all of that, like at every age, that whole rush to succeed, that whole 30 under 30, that's ageism. And if that didn't exist, we could all just keep growing and changing. And now I'm going to try this, and now I'm going to be this. And what I think happens instead is we get to, let's say, 45, and we have all of a sudden this thing kind of reveals itself in us. This is where the ongoing revelation comes. Like, it reveals, like, ooh, I'm really curious about the Enneagram, or I'm really curious about art, or I'm really curious about birds, or whatever it is.
Right.
And
Yes.
all of a sudden, these voices in the head come in. What will everybody think? I've never shown an interest in this before. They're going to think I'm an imposter, or they're going to think I don't know what, like all these sort of critical, judgmental thoughts. But if we all accepted that humans are just on this growth journey from beginning to end, that wouldn't be a thing. I think that would just go away.
And I think terms like 40 is the new 30,
Yeah.
50 is the new 40.
Hate it.
Like that box represents, something that we should have done this by now.
Yes, exactly. And if you don't see yourself in that, then it's like, oh, I'm a failure. Now, how many people have I talked to that dread their 40th birthday or their 50th birthday because they haven't checked the boxes that they thought they were supposed to check by that age?
Oh, for sure. Oh, yes. And I love that you say the ongoing, evolution. And you made a point just a second ago about when we attach to that, this decade, this year, this whatever, and we decide to try something new or uncover something in ourselves that we didn't even know we had an interest in.
Yeah.
And the thoughts start coming in our head. We think what other people might be thinking.
Exactly.
And that becomes the stumbling block, is our fear of people are going to think we've lost our minds.
Exactly.
I want to do salsa dancing at, 50.
Yes. And so I guess every action has an equal and opposite reaction idea. So now that midlife reinvention is the thing, like, my friend Ann Douglas has written this book called Navigating the Messy Middle. And I think she wrote in her book, like, you don't have to reinvent yourself. Like, it's actually not a prerequisite of being in midlife. So there's this pressure, like, so now you're 50, what are you going to do? Like, nothing. I'm going to enjoy what I have. Like, not everybody is going to want to radically change their life at midlife. And I think that's part of what's in the reinvention narrative. It's like,
oh, yes. Oh, good.
Right. So, yeah. So I think it's just anything that becomes a soundbite on social media bears some investigation, I think. And that was one of them for me.
See, you have this wisdom about you. And that if we could take away one thing today, it's question those things. Don't just accept them as, well, this is the norm. Yeah. And that's what you said. It became a thought in your head. What does that mean?
Yeah. Why does that bother me?
And that's what I love. And I'll talk to you some more later. But the prompts that you have in this book, I was like, well, that's a good question. Well, there you go. Begin questioning. Let the words come out of your head. Get them out. Yeah. And then we can begin moving.
Yeah. I'm very, if I'm passionate about one thing in midlife, it's curiosity. It's just letting yourself be curious. What's here for me? What would make me feel alive now? What do I want to experience? And those are the things that I sort of look for when I look for people who inspire me, is that sense of exploration, that sense of curiosity. I don't cotton to people who are telling me what to do in midlife very well.
Go, girl. I like it. Spoken like a true 9.
Oh, really?
So I love that. And I'm sorry. I know this is, relatively new.
Yeah.
But my husband is a 9.
Uh-huh.
And one of the beautiful characteristics of a 9 is their stubbornness.
Ooh.
Because and I say that as a compliment, because you don't just take everything at face value. No, I'm not just going to jump on board with that. I'm going to step back.
Yeah.
Ask the questions.
Ask the
So,
questions. Yeah. And I have to say, I've always had a little rebel in me, that was very alive and well when I was a teenager, and then really took a back seat for the 20s and 30s. But the ability to question, the ability to be curious has really ramped up for me in midlife. So I really feel like it's not necessarily an automatic thing that will happen for people, but I really think it's something that we can mine in ourselves at this age really, really beautifully. So yeah.
and that's, I love this conversation because this begins to give people permission to change the narrative
Yeah.
by asking
Yes.
questions.
Yeah.
So tell me how you started, what you do, and you can tell, talk about exactly what it is, your programs,
Sure.
because they're beautiful,
Oh,
beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. So let's see. I'm gonna see if I can challenge myself to tell this in a short way.
I know, lifetime.
Yeah. But basically, after university, I was afraid to sit on my parents' couch watching daytime television. And I don't think I told you this part of the story when we met
No.
last week, but I was very afraid of that. I didn't want that to be my story. And I guess I was seeing that in a few other
Mm,
peers. So I volunteered for this charity that was at the time fighting racism, anti-Semitism, hate in all kinds of ways. And it was a really beautiful experience. And I was very in touch with my values doing that. And then I moved into a job that seemed fun. And I was working for a film distribution company.
mm.
And that was around the time when there was a Blockbuster on every corner,
Yes.
like, and it was just starting to take the dive where it was becoming a dinosaur. And so the company was kind of a little bit like the Titanic, and all the senior people are jumping, and so the junior people like me are rising. So here I am. I was so young. How old was I? I was like 25, and I had this huge office and this,
My God.
big job, and I didn't know what I was doing at all. And anyway, I went to a career counselor because it was clear that things were, not going to remain the way they were there. And the career counselor told me that I should be a coach. And that was when life coaching was quite new, right? So this is 26 years ago.
Wow.
And she gave me the name of a program, like a school to go back to. And I had not been a great student. And I had told myself that I couldn't go back to school. Like that was a story I had for myself.
Oh,
Um, but I was looking into it, and then I just started to hear these voices. Well, who are you to coach anyone? You've had no life experience. You've had no work experience. Like what do you have to offer as a coach? And, you know, now that I know what I know, and I know that coaching isn't about actually having the knowledge, but it's about drawing it out in others. I could have coached people. I could have coached people my age. I could have coached teenagers. I could have done a lot of things. I could have gone into HR. There's many paths I could have taken, but instead I went into advertising. And I was a project manager, and I developed websites and online advertising. And again, I was following my values the best I could.
yeah.
So I wanted something that wasn't conventional. I wanted something that was untraditional and fun and exciting. And then what happened is I was working on these huge accounts, and I guess I shouldn't name names, but huge multi-million-dollar accounts that you would know that are in everywhere on every corner, that I felt at odds with in values. And I got really sick. I don't think I told you this part either. I got really, really sick from the stress. And I wouldn't have even been able to tell you I was stressed, but my body was
Mm-hmm.
freaking out.
Oh, yes.
So it took me about a year to get back to health. And then I had my first child, and I left that. And I was home with my kids. I had two kids, and I was home with my kids for about 6 years. And then I started to have this feeling again of like, what else would be fun to do? And I knew I wanted to write. And for the first time, I made a vision board and I put writer on it.
Oh, good.
And I realize I'm failing terribly at telling this short, But anyway.
No, I love this. I love this, the
Okay.
realness of a life that's been lived well.
Yeah. And just like, right, like this, just
Yes.
following like water. And so I did. I went to work for an online magazine and worked there for a number of years, wearing many different hats. And it was really like going back to school in many ways. I learned so much about social media, so much about writing, so much. I ended up getting published in our national newspaper. It was really wonderful.
By the way, she's
Mhm.
from Canada.
I'm from Canada.
Sorry, I
Yes.
forgot to.
Toronto. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, then I started to feel really kind of burnt out and stuck and bored, and not just in my work, but in my life. Like I loved the life I had chosen for myself, but it was like just this feeling of just barely hanging on, like really just barely hanging on. Um, the stress of it. And there was a lot going on in those years, on a personal level and different health crises and, there was stress. Anyway, all this time that this is going on, there's this little thing that's living in me about the coaching. It's just small. It's like a little pebble. It's just sitting in my heart. And as coaching became kind of the butt of the joke, and you'd see it on TV and life coach flaky, I would have like a little twinge, like, oh, I could never do that because what will people think of me? But then I ended up going to a coach, and we were talking, and she said, "Do you want to do what I'm doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to do what you're doing." But it was like it was so dismissive of me, like, but that's not possible. Somehow that wasn't possible. Anyway, I started researching coaching programs. And then should I tell the little serendipitous part about what my friend sent me that I told you?
Yes,
Do you remember
yes,
that part?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So I have a friend who's like one of my dearest, but we don't talk every day. So she didn't know that I had been looking into this or anything like that. And she sent me a message that said, I don't know if this is for you. It was an event. I don't know if this is for you. I can't do it because of my schedule, but when I love the person who's running it, and I thought of you immediately. So I looked at it and it wasn't quite for me, but then I got curious and I said, I wonder what it is about the woman running it that made her think of me. That's so interesting. And I went to her Facebook page and listened to a podcast that she had posted where she was interviewed. And she said that she had done every module of the CTI coach training program.
Yes. Oh.
And I was like, what's that? And so I, at that time, Googled it, and there was a free experience coactive coaching night. And I went, it was February. So here in Toronto, it's like freezing, icy, dark. Nothing's getting me off the couch in February, like nothing at night, nothing. But I did. I got myself there. I walked into this room by myself, and I was really scared. But as soon as we started doing the exercises, I realized that I was home. Like it actually felt like home. So the next day I was in a training. They did like 5 weekend trainings. And I started in February and was done by July. And then I did my certification the following September. So yeah.
I love that. My kids can tell you they grew up hearing what you think about comes about, what you think about comes about. And, the universe conspires on your behalf.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts become things, and all these little mantras that they would be like, but they began to see over time, oh, well, okay, these serendipitous things are happening in mom's life. And then they begin to notice it in their own. Because once you begin realizing the thought is the seed, it's planted in there. And she just gave you the gift, the message of here's some watering. Now go.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a little buried, right? Like I had to do some, where's that seed? It wasn't obvious. So that's kind of the fun part.
And that's the thing is, who am I to do this? Who am I to do this?
Yes.
And I went through a coaching program out in San Francisco with I'll mention her name because my audience knows her,
Uh-huh.
Ginger Lapid Bogda. I got to actually be in her class before COVID happened. And so I spent a week with this group of people and her, and some of the other people in there already were doing, their own work and leading group, they were coaching or doing whatever it was. They were already doing it. They were talking about doing it in corporations or with certain other groups that they were in. And I was just like, oh, I'm starting too late. And who am I? And at one point towards the end, I said to Ginger, I said, well, I think maybe if I do a few more certifications, if I do a few more of this. And she just looked at me and said, what if you were ready right now?
Yeah.
Well, the thought had never occurred to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's like you say, those little serendipitous things. And I had definitely, it wasn't serendipity that I ended out in San Francisco from Georgia. But when you are in that place of, how will I know? How will I know? How can I find a direction?
Yeah.
And those little voices come. It's like, well, what if I'm ready? So anyway, let me ask something.
Great.
You have such a beautiful quote on your website.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what I'm sure is part of, the power years.
Yes. Yeah.
Your trademark. So what you said is, now is when all your experience pairs with possibility. Oh, that's why these years are your power years. Is that just not, I mean, you said it, so putting you on the spot, but now is when all your experience pairs with possibility. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
So
that's what your teacher was saying. That's what your teacher was saying. You're ready because you're not too late. You've got everything you've done before this. And maybe you don't have a corporation doing this kind of coaching, but you have all the other things. And it's just been compost. And now you get to use it with this to create something that's all yours. And it's like the timing's perfect. So I just love that story. But yeah, the power years. Yeah. So when I came to working with midlife people, and that's really because I realized I needed someone like me, probably through my 40s, I needed someone like me, and I didn't even know this all existed, and maybe there were people like me, I just didn't know it. But I really felt alone during those years, and like I didn't realize how common it was to ask the questions I was asking or to have the feelings I was feeling. And it's not necessarily that, I was in crisis. I wasn't in crisis. I've experienced crises in my life. This wasn't it. It was kind of like a low subchronic dissatisfaction or stuckness sort of feeling. And I wanted to help people through that and for them to know they weren't alone and to open the conversation. And when I started to think about it, I was like, what makes this age so powerful? Like, why do I feel so powerful now? And then I realized it is the only time, assuming a long and healthy life, it's the only time in our lives that we will have experience and possibility in equal measure.
Oh my goodness. That's so powerful. Power years, exactly. And I have to say, I love what you said just a second ago. I needed someone like me.
Yeah.
I may cry.
Oh.
That's just really powerful.
Mm-hmm. What moves you about it?
Woo! I may have to edit this part. No, it's okay.
No, don't.
Because that is the realization that we all need to give ourselves is someone needs someone just like you. Yeah. I needed someone who was leading me through these questioning years. I have had mentors and coaches and my mom, who's my biggest mentor and coach, to give me permission to
Mm.
say, what you have is what someone else needs.
Yes.
But what you're doing is opening this conversation to women who are just entering this. And
Mhm.
that's such a pivotal time in their
Mhm.
lives. And to say, I was right where you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh.
oh, well, excuse me.
Oh, that moves me so much to see you. Yeah.
So
That's
beautiful.
beautiful. It is.
Okay, let me get myself together here
Okay.
and
Yeah.
ask you.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ann Douglas a minute
Yes.
ago,
Yeah.
and you've been doing something called the
The
midlife mail.
midlife mailbag. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we have. Yes, it's so much fun. Um, so Anne and I actually met when I was doing my content work when I was on the online because her expertise has been in parenting. She's a hugely famous and best-selling
Yeah.
parenting author,
Half a million
and
books. That's pretty
yeah,
good.
I mean she's incredible, and she's also just the warmest, kindest, most thoughtful person. And we connected at that time to help um, sell her then book that she was working on that connected with what I was doing. And we stayed in contact. And it was funny when I was leaving that job, I told her I was leaving. She said, "Oh, I hope you're going to do something fun." And I said, "Well, I'm a midlife coach." And she said, "Oh, do you coach burnt out middle-aged?" Oh no, I didn't say I was a midlife coach. I just said I was a coach. And she said, "Do you coach burnt out middle-aged authors?" And I said, "Yes, that's exactly what I do." And so anyhow, we've stayed in contact and we've both been in this midlife space. And she's just published this incredible book that I highly recommend. It's coming out in the US. I'm not sure when this will air, this interview, but I think it's coming out in the US in December.
Okay.
People can find it. It's called Navigating the Messy Middle. And
Love that
it's just a
title.
lovely, lovely book. Anyway, so we came together to have discussions like this, where we talk about topics that midlife women have submitted or questions they've submitted. And it's not advice because neither of us are coming from a place of advice, but we explore the topic, we talk about what we know about it. And she's interviewed the type of books she writes. She interviews many, many women who are in that, and also non-binary people who are in that time. And so she has a lot of knowledge just from talking, and I have a lot of knowledge from my programs. You would ask me about my programs, and I don't think I answered, but when just before COVID, I was just coaching one-on-one, and I had sort of one way to work with people. You could hire me for 6 months, and that was it. It was kind of the standard coach thing. And then back to that stubbornness. I was always like, why? and then COVID hit, and it became like, what is time? I don't even know what is 6 months. What's going to be in 6 months? So I decided that I was going to revamp all my offerings from a place of what I felt would be useful, not what other coaches did, not what my teachers did, not anything, just me. And at that time, I thought, what do people need? And what I felt they needed at the time was big bang for a short period of time. Like, because do you remember that at that time people were saying, if you can't go out, go in. Do you remember that? When we were all
No,
in
I didn't.
okay, we were
That's
all
a
in
great
lockdown, and
slogan,
people were
though.
like, if you can't go out, go in. So
Go
they were
in.
encouraging all this self-reflection, but I felt like that's a pretty tall order if people haven't been in a practice of self-reflection. And how could I help people with that? So everything has evolved since then, but that's when I started my group work and worked with midlife women. So I've had many cohorts of that now over the last 2 years, I guess, 2, 3 years. And I changed my one-on-one. So now it's all evolved that I just asked for a 12-week. And this is what I decided. I'm giving you all my tools, like all the tools that I would use in a 6-month engagement, and giving them to you in 12 weeks. I'm going to teach you everything that I would teach you. And then if you want to continue coaching, awesome. But maybe then you have your toolbox and you just go off. And it's been working really well. I really have enjoyed it.
I love that so much because most of us have been through some sort of therapy. I'm grateful for the therapy that helped, in those crisis moments of life or times or years or whatever. But, going to the office once a week and an hour at a time. And it's like, I remember sitting in my therapist's office one time and I said, okay, just, give me the homework, give me the list of things. I just want to tell me what to do and I'll go home and check it off. And because I thought I needed, right? Give me the steps to where we're going to get to this place. And I never really got what I felt I needed as far as some solid tools.
Yes.
That would help me maybe just go from week to week.
Yeah.
During that time. So,
yes. And you're right. Like by this age, a lot of us have done therapy and a lot of us know maybe why we are the way we are or like what has informed some of our behavior. And so a lot of times, and that's not to say people in midlife don't need therapy. They do. I get it. Trust me, I do. Like, but a lot of people want to get into action. And that's where coaching can be really beautiful, as I'm sure you know. It's like, okay, we're going to deepen our understanding of who you are. And then we're going to take that understanding and figure out together what it is that you want to do as that person.
Yes.
And then you go out in the world and you try that thing. And then you come back and we're like, how did that go? What did you learn about who you're becoming? Like, what do you want to do next? So it's a really beautiful being and doing modality that keeps people in action. And a lot of people like me need the accountability of like, oh, I'm going to see Sarah. Like I have clients who are like, I knew I was going to see you. So I did the thing,
Good. That's why you paid.
Yeah. So, and some people need more accountability than others. Right. But it's just for me, I really enjoyed the forward motion of it.
Yeah.
And the depth of it without going backwards. So
a roadmap. You give them
I would say it's even less of a roadmap. And I used to think it was more of a roadmap, but now I think it's like a flashlight that shows you where the next thing is.
That's beautiful. That's
right?
beautiful. Well, I say roadmap because I think it's part of what I learned, but in the sense that if you don't know where you're starting from, what's your starting place if you are trying to go somewhere? And again, that's what the Enneagram does in my book, is it tells you here's where you're starting. And then, and it really is like a flashlight. It turns on a light and you can truly see what's in front of you. You can see what's behind you, but the perspective just is suddenly the light comes on. And I want to just say, you've just really delineated very well the difference between therapy and coaching. And please, in case that came across at all, like I'm, just
anti-therapy. No, not at all. It didn't. And I am not either at all. My mom is a retired therapist, actually. She just retired during COVID. Yeah.
And you know what? Yes, we talked about that when we first met.
Yes.
Please just say that about when your mom
my mom became a therapist in her 40s. She went back to school part-time, raising teenagers. And I think it took her 7 years. And funnily enough, I think we were both the same age. I think we were both exactly the same age when we had our first clients, which is so interesting.
Wow.
But yeah, she's amazing. She's also my favorite mentor and coach. And so I have a similar relationship, but she's amazing.
We should go offline sometime and talk about our moms, because
yes.
I think it makes a difference in how you view your potential, your possibilities. What does life stop? And that's, oh my gosh, if I could just tell you all the things my mom has done. And so for me, I don't see life any other way as other than it just keeps unfolding, evolving, whatever word, but this finite time that we confine our usefulness, that's where this conversation I love having with you is, oh no, let's go. Let's just keep seeing.
Yeah. And it really is for me about the being. Like, now tell me if this is wrong, because again, I'm so new to this, but
Uh-oh,
when I was looking at the 9
Hmm?
and they had the levels of health.
Yes.
And the third level was something about groups and supporting people in groups and mediating and all that stuff. And that's what I do now. And I know that that is a skill and a talent, and it feels comfortable. And I get a lot of reward from it, and other people get a lot out of it. But just a couple of years ago, I was like, I could never do a group.
Well, then you've begun to just see.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about that we talk a lot about type 9s is they don't allow themselves to share their voice. They
Yeah.
have this wisdom, but they think, I'll just kind of hang out in the background. I won't ruffle any feathers. That desire to keep peace at all costs, until you look and go, the cost is that I am not giving this gift of, and 9s are just like the best mediators because they see the perspectives, the empathy that you talked about. You have this gift of seeing where somebody else, where their center of gravity, we might call it, is, where they might be stuck, and have that ability to ask questions. So it takes a while sometimes for a 9 to realize that their voice matters.
Yeah. Well, when I first started writing, I was 40. And the very first column I was putting out, I was so nervous. And I said to the same exact friend who sent me that event,
Oh, yeah.
I said, I'm nervous about this. I feel like, I'm putting myself out there too much or something like that. And she said, no, the world needs more Sara.
See, what a friend. The world needs more Sara. There's your book title.
Yeah. I would never.
Uh-oh.
It could be a chapter.
Okay.
I'll meet you halfway. But yeah, no, it's just, so the being part, like, I could never run a group. It's not so much about running the group, it's being the person who I need to be to run the group. And even when I look at my mom, it's not that she's done. It's like, oh, this woman, it's who she is in the world. It's how she shows up. It's how she affects other people and impacts other people that motivates me so much, even more than what she's done. It's just, but that all feeds into itself. So anyway.
And that's exactly what you've been saying all along, is it doesn't come down to what you've done.
No.
It's the being.
Yeah.
And in your being, the world could open up to a whole different avenue of doing.
Yes.
But first, it's the being.
Yeah.
It has to come first.
And we're not used to that, I think, as midlife women. We're very task oriented. We have big to-do lists. I one of the workshops I offer is called Tame Your Should Monsters. And I have women write down all the shoulds, and they just start writing, and we could sit there for 20 minutes and they would still be writing their shoulds. And I get it. I have them too. And so this workshop helps them interrogate the shoulds in the same way that you interrogate midlife reinvention. It's like, why is this a should? What if it was a choose or a I don't want to, I choose not to? Like, what would that do? Or, so
what if I said no?
Yeah.
What if I said yes?
Yeah, it's a fun workshop. I might actually offer it again soon because I miss doing it. It's very embodied choosing. So anyway,
I wrote a blog called Life Can Be a Should Show.
Yes. That's it.
It is.
That's it. And I really think our demographic of women that we talk to are really steeped in the shoulds. Like,
oh, yeah. That's why I want to continue these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Change the the assumption
Yeah.
of even how we can talk about this
Yeah.
to each other. Oh, here we go. I said we would try to keep it short. It's now it's been like 45 minutes.
Oh no, I didn't know what our timeline was.
No, we don't really. I just don't want to take up your entire day.
That's
But I
okay.
do want to go back and say
Yeah.
two things. A,
Yeah.
if any of my listeners want to submit a question for the midlife mailbag,
Yeah.
her contact information will be in the show notes, but it really is. You can just write Sara Meaton at
Sara Smeaton. Yeah, it's with an S. So Sara and then Smeaton.
what did I thought I said Smeaton.
Sara Meaton, I think you said, because sometimes you can forget that there's an
Oh no, there's an S.
There's an S. Okay.
No, I know.
Sara Smeaton.
Sorry. Yes.
It's the mailbag is in under my blog, so you can find it there, and you can watch. It's a YouTube video, and you can watch it and then submit your question, or just submit your question. Yeah,
and I'll have all those links. And last, I want to say your very kind offer is something that you actually sell on your website, and you're good with that, and it's a very generous thing that you've said. Look, you said, hey, I would like to give something to your listeners. And so this, the Power Years Passport Playbook is downloadable. Yes, see?
Yes.
Did I do it right?
You did. I had to think about it. Yes, you did.
I know it's the 4 Ps, but you guys go download this. It'll be in the show notes. It's really fun. And I say that because that's kind of my, it's like type 7s. That's kind of the theme word. And, but I do believe I've evolved past everything has to be fun or I can't. But I will have to say, I really enjoy, now there are some real introspective things, but it's like the way you've, outlined it and have it like a passport, a travel thing. It's really fun. So go download that.
Yes, I hope you do. Yeah. So it's free. So if you just go, you could just put your name and email in, and you can download it either as a printable or as a digital.
Yeah.
So you can have both. Yeah, you can have both. And I'm so glad you found it fun because it was also a product of COVID. I'll just say quickly. And when no planes were flying and nobody was going anywhere. And it was kind of that, like, what journey can we do right now? Well, we can do this internal. So it was again back to that, if you can't go out, go in. And it's a guided, but I wanted it to be fun, like a trip.
See there, you said fun too.
Yes, I did. I wanted to be fun because I think a lot of times this work that we encourage people to do it's sort of framed as a real slog. And I don't think it has to be. I don't think it has to be. I think getting to know yourself can be really a joy.
It should be a joy because the essence of who we all are is pure joy and pure love. We just have to get past those tight armors and those rigid boundaries of assumption that we've allowed to just, build up around who we are. That's why I call this the unfolding. Because when we remove what has stood in the way of truly who we are, then it is fun to discover who you are.
It is. I mean, it can be very confronting, as I found out when I was reading the description. But yeah, it can be really fun. And I love that we both do such similar things in different ways. And I'm so excited to learn more about what you do and how you do it. And I really appreciate you having me. And I just want to say too, that there are other free resources on the site that, I give away free all the time. So people can go look at those. There's a manifesto. There's you want to talk about that? Yeah.
Yes. Continue. Because actually, let me say this. I don't think I told you this.
Yeah.
When I first started, before I got on, Instagram and started searching by the hashtags or Facebook or anything like that, I just Googled, and I don't even know what I put in, but this Midlife Manifesto came up.
Oh, that's how you
You're-
found me? Oh,
Yes.
wow.
And I
Oh,
was like, oh, so go ahead.
yes. So this manifesto, I wrote it a number of years ago now. I just wrote it kind of in one shot and put it up on my site, like with my eyes closed, because it was kind of a stake in the ground that maybe as a nine, I'm not used to doing. But what it is, they were all things that I wanted to remember about who I want to be at this time of life. And they're not things that necessarily come easy all the time.
Right.
So, it's like remembering that I want to call out ageism when I see it, which is hard.
Mm.
Hard. I just did it on Instagram. I never ever say anything negative on Instagram, but I called it out, and I got sort of laughed out of the building. Like, people were like, "You have no sense of humor. Get out of here. You're too young to know anything about ageism." Like, it was not fun. But things like that, and like to stay curious and to remind myself that things are just sort of, this is not the end, it's the beginning. So that's that. And then I have a Power Years promise that people can print out to remind themselves what they want to stay connected to. And there's another download with questions that's like the bridge to your Power Years. So how do I get from here to there, and what does that in between time look like? Because that in between time is really when all the like stuff happens, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, there's
Why
good stuff.
when I teach, I use the metamorphosis process.
Yeah.
There's this really wonderful account who has beautiful insight, but she started talking about, oh, people are, they're in the cocoon phase, and they're just kind of going off by themselves, getting a little retreat, going to get just time off to yourselves. And I am like, then you don't really realize what happened
in the cocoon.
In the cocoon
Goo.
chrysalis. What did you say?
Goo.
Goo. I'm glad you know that. That is the part of everything that I've worked to build this identity of who I think I am.
Yes.
That is the time where
yes.
you're not going in with a book and some
No.
some hot cocoa.
The caterpillar's just kind of like, ooh, this is nice. I'm an introvert. No, dissolves into
It
goo.
dissolves. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a true transition, period.
Absolutely. And there is, that's like the apocalypse you talked about when you commented on that post of mine you shared, right? That unveiling, or that it's not, but it's so interesting that a word we think of as destructive is not. Yeah, it's so interesting. So they're very close.
What is?
Destruction and unveiling or unfolding. Like, there has to be, something has to die in order for something else to be born, right? Like, there is something of that.
Yes, yes, yes. But it's not the end. It's not a terminal end.
Right.
When we think of all the movies, and I'm not in any of those, the zombie apocalypse and all that. But this is the message that everybody has just accepted. Oh, I fear the apocalypse because it's the end.
Right.
And it gives rise to the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Sara, thank you. Wrap it up and say, I am just beyond gifted that you showed up in my life.
I feel the same way. Thank you so much.
Wealth of knowledge, information on your website, which really, even just to go there for once a day and go, I'm going to read that manifesto just one more time, print it out.
Yeah, I have a printable version. Go print it out. I have so many people tell me that they have it on their bulletin boards. It just is so incredible to hear.
Well, thank you for letting that voice out into the world. You are a gift.
Thank you. Thank you,
everybody.
So much.
Thanks for listening, and go thy way and have those power years. Acknowledge them, enjoy them.
Yes.
Until next time, talk to you soon.